What there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about Kena, Bridge of Spirits on the PlayStation 5. Now this game also exists on the PlayStation 4, but for this video specifically, I want to talk about the PlayStation 5 version, what makes this game so good, and talk about if this was able to live up to the hype. There's been a lot of conversation in general around Kena as a project, because now that we're in this next generation of consoles, people have been asking what makes these new systems different. Are there games that are going to exist only on these systems that can push the boundaries? And Kena is a game that feels like it deserves to be on the PlayStation 5. And not just because of the lack of load times, this game is utterly gorgeous. This game is pretty much poetry in motion, mostly because of the very, very gorgeous animation style. Now Kena is an action-adventure game. You're going to be platforming, you're going to be beating things to death with your stick, but I feel like the major draw of it is this Disney aesthetic. The art style is very purposely created. There's this sense of really beautiful intensity to every leaf, every character, every little puzzle you're solving. That absolutely works, especially because this game runs at a solid frame rate and maintains 4K at all times, which, let me tell you, playing this game in 4K on my TV, it's just a crazy experience. But, I mean, this isn't just about an interactive movie. This comes down to, is the game itself fun to play? Well, it is, for the most part. There are a couple nitpicks I have about Kena when it comes to the combat and definitely to the exploration, but let's just get into how things essentially work. Now, throughout the course of Kena, you're kind of just exploring this very corrupted village. There's sections of it that have been filled with this very terrible, toxic, bubbly up stuff that kind of looks like gigantic blisters of evilness, and your job is to go in here and clear it out by using what is essentially your special spirit powers. Now, something that very much surprised me during the course of Kena is the fact that this game does not really spell stuff out. It very rarely says, go here or do this. It kind of gives you a vague checklist, but this game is very much about environmental storytelling. It's about those times where you find yourself in a big area and you're just trying to follow cryptic lanterns into the darkness. A lot of times there's puzzles and you don't even realize they're puzzles until you start working on them. And this, to me, is definitely the best aspect of Kena when it comes to the gameplay, is when you are just sort of exploring and learning it completely at your own pace. Now, let me be clear, I kind of got my butt kicked by some of these puzzles. Even though this does look like a little tiny kid's game, some of these freaking problems are shockingly tough. Times where you need to try and ring bells in a certain order, or those times where you're trying to dig deeper into the depths of a particular dungeon, but you have no idea how to progress. Those are the most fun. Kena does not hold your hand. It doesn't expect you to follow waypoints. It doesn't tell you directly where you should go or when you should double jump. But that is really what's great about it. It feels like a classic game reinvented. Now, there is some downsides to this. Let's talk a bit more about how this exploration technically works. During the course of this game, you're given just random sporadic upgrades, things like a magical bow that lets you shoot arrows that can just blast people and hit them in their weak points. You can do things like get a grapple hook. You can get spirit grenades, which of course I'm going to be calling spirit bombs. Now, all of these things have different purposes in combat, but also just in the exploration itself. Like times where you need to use these spirit grenades to knock stuff up in the air, and using these bombs, you can create platforms of anti-gravityness, or using your bow, you can try and use it to hit different objectives, turn on different switches, or sometimes just knock down a simple collectible that's out of reach. Everything about this game definitely fits together because Kena herself feels like she's learning these abilities with you. It's never one of those games that makes you feel too strong. In fact, at times you can feel relatively weak. let's talk about the fighting. I think the combat is well balanced, but at times feels like it needs to slow things down a tiny bit. Now, in this you have a strong attack, a weak attack, and a block to start with, along with a specialized dodge. Now, towards the beginning of the game, many of these enemies will hesitate, they'll flinch, they'll wait to see an opening for an attack, so bashing them down is very, very easy, but as the game goes on, it introduces some very, very crazy foes that will self-destruct, ones that have blades for hands, and you have to start to be much more creative and use your entire arsenal. Now, these tools we've talked about, things like the spirit bomb, the magic bow, these things become absolutely essential to taking down your targets. And I especially like this because, honestly, you do not have a lot of health. Like, there were a lot of times where I would miss like 2 dodges and I would get completely freaking destroyed. But I kind of enjoy this. It feels like so many games these days are just designed to be beaten, so having a game like this that is difficult and unyielding at times makes those freaking boss fights feel all the more rewarding. When I beat stuff, it feels like I beat it. When I figure out that next big puzzle solution and get to progress just a bit further, it feels like I've actually earned it. Now, there is ways to make things slightly easier. Kena is a very focused experience. You kind of know your general objective for the most part, but if you choose to explore, there is tiny little sort of side quests, extra just hidden stuff, from doors that can be unlocked, extra tiny houses that can be explored, and this leads to extra upgrade points. Now, within the skill trees, these just essentially give you extra abilities. They give you stuff like special slams, extra magic that can be used, and you get more tools to just basically defend yourself. But what I like about this is that the upgrades in this are needed. You need to grind. You need to level up. You need to make sure you're as strong as possible, or you're probably going to be hitting a lot of checkpoints again and again and again as you freaking die. Now, one of the things I feel like I wish was explained a bit better is these meditation points. The main way that you find like inner peace and upgrade your health bar is to find these little hidden circles on the ground. And they're sort of just so out of the way, I missed a lot of them. I had a very tiny health bar. For like 3/4 of this game, I was running on empty. There were segments of this game that at times just felt badly balanced because as strong as I was and as much damage as I was dealing, I still could only just be hit once before I'd fall over dead because I could not find these incredibly well hidden little tiny flat circles on the ground that happened to upgrade my health permanently. I wish that these were just closer to the main path, or at least draw your attention to them a bit more so you understand the importance of these magical rings. For the most part, I do really enjoy the exploration and a lot of aspects of Kena, but I do want to just put out some gripes. First and foremost, I do not particularly care about the story. The concept of the spirit guides just trying to guide people to this happy afterlife of trying to cleanse this cursed forest is very visually appealing. I like the way that graphically they've decided to convey a lot of these ideas. Seeing the grass grow, seeing these waterfalls part, seeing the visual representation of us cleansing the forest leads to some very good moments, but I just couldn't really care about Kena herself. And a lot of times, these people we encounter are so forgettable, I can't remember any of their names. Like, maybe a couple of them that happen to be like major quest names, but a lot of these people just come and go. They pat you on the back, they give you a magical ability, and then they just disappear, never to be seen again. Now, the other major gripe I have about this, and it is one that definitely dragged down my experience, I felt at times that the jumping is very freaking clunky. Like, basically, you have a double jump, and let's just face facts, Kena, she looks like she weighs like 85 pounds dripping wet. This girl is a freaking twig, and yet somehow she seems to have the mass of several black holes because she is just so incredibly dense. If you miss some of these jumps by a millimeter, you fall to your death. But more than that, what actually annoys me is that Kena's double jump is relatively big. You can kind of just fly across the map at times, which is very, very pleasing, but My issue is that this game is very guided. It's trying to take you down a very, very direct path. If you try and explore too much, if you try and go outside the boundaries of what the developers have predicted, it will not let you do it. Times like this, where I can get onto a roof, I can see this spot, but it is completely unreachable because, unfortunately, that's not part of the plan. And this happens a lot. There were circumstances where I could see a shortcut and I could see a jump that I could physically make, but because it wasn't just something that was utterly designed explicitly, you'd bump into invisible walls. There are so many invisible walls in this game that just really constantly reminded me that I am playing a video game and not anything else. This is an interactive experience, but I felt like I just kept bumping into the boundaries of a much better game. Even despite these flaws, I still think that Kena is a very good time. It's a super great experience that I feel like kind of exemplifies the next generation of indie games, where even stuff made by tinier studios with a smaller development team can still just do so much because the hardware is getting so great. I am very, very glad I got a chance to play this, but now that we've talked about some goods and some bads, let's go over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Kena Bridge of Spirits an 8 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. I do apologize for this video being a little bit later than some of the other people's. I actually had some bad personal life problems come up. I had to help a friend out who was in a car accident and yada yada. So essentially I'm just saying, you know, I tried to hit the embargo, but I didn't quite make it. So thank you for watching this video. Thank you for leaving a like, even though I'm like, 12 hours later than everybody else. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.